Hello, everyone. This is Renee Tarot. It's so good to be back with you guys. I have not done the type of reading I'm doing today, which is about the state of the union, the state of the world, since my World War III video in 2022, which was 4 years ago, but seems like it was 3 weeks ago. That's how fast time is going by. So I hope all is well. This channel, I will say, on YouTube has gone through quite a bit with all the algorithm changes. We went from, and I've said this before, 6,000 views, 6,000 subscribers, over 6,000 subscribers, down to maybe two, simply because I deleted the channel and started over. And so, yeah, but I just kind of want to talk about the world as a crime scene that it is, because I just want to look at some things and talk about some things. So this is going to be a tarot reading slash history lesson, and I hope that you enjoy it. So as you know, wherever you are in the world, a lot is going on. Um, we have the United States and Israel, as far as we know it, by the news outlets that we have attacked Iran, and Iran is defending itself. It has been said that some of the weapons that Iran has doesn't have the capabilities as far as targeting as it needs to. So of course there are going to be some innocent lives lost. But I think that, as with anything, you get better with practice, okay? So, we want to talk about the world, how it is, because you can say, hey, people need this and people need that, but then you also have to ask yourself, what will they do with it? Will they do the right thing with it? And who gets to control who gets what? So, the world as a crime scene, there was a big theft that took place in the world. It's been going on for thousands of years. Empires come and go. But for hundreds of years, the West, countries like UK, France, Spain, they have used the world as a playground, and in some cases they cheated. And this was along with the West as far as the United States is concerned. So they went into India, the UK did, and basically, according to some research, took about $45 trillion. That's 45,000 billion dollars in gold, spices, clothes, tea, just name it. And it was all under the guise of helping these countries to become more civilized. Now, keep in mind, don't forget the tribal situation of ancient Europe with regard to the Celts, with regard to the tribes, the Germanic tribes, and things of that nature. But however they became what we call quote unquote civilized, they then began to spread it around the world as the UK, became a new empire. And the money that was gotten from all these other countries through colonization, through slavery, what have you, was used to build London. And the countries that were used were pretty much not left with a lot except for old infrastructure. Okay. So Europe has a lot of fancy buildings, great museums, but the museums are not filled with European items. They are filled with items from other countries throughout the world. And we just got a situation where right now everyone is wanting their own autonomy, their own autonomy. So we're going to look at each country, and we're going to start with, or we can look at continents as well. So just relax, like I said last time. relax as we look at this crime scene because you can't dissect a crime scene in 5 minutes. We'll start with Africa. Africa is one of the largest markets in the world. I wouldn't call it a grocery store because most people don't go there to shop, but the rest of the world is a grocery store for them. However, Africa is really working, as far as I understand through the research that I've done, is to become their own autonomous group of nations. All right? They are working on electric cars, and they're working to enrich themselves, not necessarily to make others rich, but to enrich themselves. Okay? But they do have to learn some things from other developed countries like Europe, like, or continents like Europe, like, and countries like China. They have to show them some things of how they are to attain these items or put together these items or work these factories even if these factories are left behind and left empty. So, what should happen with regard to Africa? Because many crimes have been committed against Africa, from human trafficking to stealing resources to getting rid of leaders to what have you. And there are many situations around that. Each leader has somebody that has died at their hands, but who's to say who should lead what country? I will give you some ideas of what I think needs to happen in this crime scene that we call a world. So let's look at Africa. I would say that so much has been stolen from Africa that they're probably not going to get it all back. Okay? They may have to walk away and just say, "Okay, we're going to have to start where we are and move on because so much is taken. We might get some of it back. We might get the bones of some of our greats. We might get some of the treasures from the museums. We might even get some aid or maybe even a check, but we're not going to get back everything that was stolen. It is what it is. It kind of reminds me of the three or four girls from Alabama that were killed and was one of the impetuses for the civil rights movement. And my understanding is that the gentlemen who were behind the bombing of that church never got justice. They died. They lived their lives and died. And it's kind of like that's how it's going to be. So, um, what will happen with Africa in the future? We're going to get more into this, but we're going to pull a card to look at the future of Africa. And I'm going to say in the next 20 years. The future of Africa in the next 20 years. Walking away from the world stage as we know it and kind of taking their own actions, separating from dissatisfaction with how they're treated and becoming their own stage. And that pretty much is what we're seeing in the cards here. Okay, so let's look at the other players. And I'm going to try to be as politically correct as I possibly can. We're going to look at Iran, or what was at one time Persia. We're going to get to that. Let's look at Israel. Also, over in that area, Africa, there's Israel, then there's the Saudi Arabia and the other countries of the Middle East. So, I would say Israel has been sort of like a kid on a playground whose parents pay the principal to let them do whatever they want. The US and Germany has given them billions of dollars every year to be a security guard, to maintain real estate over there. And what they export is control, cameras, software, intel, intelligence. And they also have what we call the Abrahamic Foundation, where many world religions are based off of their history, which to me is the personally is the greatest heist of all times. So let's see what the future, and I actually want to look at some of my other cards. What the future holds for Israel in the next 20 years. This has been going on for thousands of years, guys. And keep in mind that Israel and the people of Palestine were once basically one people. And the people that we know as Ashkenazi left that area, went to Europe, and these were some of the more educated ones. They went through other places to other places in the world, and eventually they came back and were given the land that we now know as Israel. And so now their cousins, they are actually having situations with where the cousins are ending up dying, those cousins being Palestinians. So, authority, what we say goes, how we say goes, and it's because we have a divine mandate and we are basically chosen, and this is just how it is. Okay, so what do you do with that type of mentality, which some people may say is a bit narcissistic, but we're talking about human beliefs. And when you're dealing with human beliefs and you have everybody bought into it because of your abilities to record it, to put it into movies, to put it into TV, and to totally indoctrinate the world with it, what can you do? And so at this point, it says they are wanting to live out their passions, to have everything that they feel is promised to them. But they can't do it without other people's help financially. And like I said, many billions of dollars have been coming to them from primarily US and Germany. And what happens when the money runs out or when it gets too expensive to continue on with this? What will eventually happen to Israel? I will tell you what I think possibly should happen to that area. That is just going to be my opinion. We'll get to that in a little bit. So, the USA and Canada, let's flip over to the other side of the world. So, America is wanting to build a wall around itself under the auspices of Donald Trump because it's losing power to a certain extent and also losing notoriety from a standpoint of being popular. Canada is nice, but their big mining companies are doing the same thing in South America that the British did in India. And so let's look at where is the USA headed in the next 20 years. Some disappointment that possibly is going to mean losing some allies or feeling like they have been sort of stabbed in the back. They're standing alone. Um, of course, the regime likely is going to change, and America may feel like, hey, you let us down. Now, this is going to happen over the course of the next 20 years. And in my last World War III video, I mentioned that the sanctions were going to be removed from Russia. And I mentioned that in 2022. Well, we know eventually the sanctions were going to be moved, but it was just the other day that they mentioned that they were going to remove those sanctions so that they can get oil flowing because of what was going on in the Strait of Hormuz. So it happened like 4 years later, but it has happened. And sanctions usually last for longer than that. So let's look at Canada because Canada in my opinion, Canada is kind of smart. But I've heard from people in the diaspora that Canada is not necessary is I like people in Canada, but I have heard that some people of color say that there is some racism that they experience in Canada. I'm sure other people have not. Are you ready to eliminate excuses? Excuses are the means by which you avoid, deny, and resist the greatness you know yourself to be. So, will Canada become one of the next great world leaders? Let's ask that question. Is Canada in line to become one of the next great world leaders of the West. When you think about their geography and the fact that even though they have a lot of geography, they don't have they don't have as a lot of people just because of the geography. But they do have they're growing, and there are a lot of people who are migrating to Canada. So are they in line to become a Western power? Um, they are working. They're working to sustain themselves. They're working to keep their people with what they need. They're working to become a place that people can immigrate to. They are in the process of building. I don't, based on this reading, I don't see them as even trying to become a world power at this time. We're going to skip back over the world, the globe, to India. India is standing up. They were robbed, as I mentioned earlier, of trillions of dollars from the UK. And now they are building their own secret codes and medicines so they don't have to listen to the UK and they can do their own thing. So, what happens with India in the next 20 years on the world stage? Discontent, boredom. Let's keep going with this. Not necessarily showing their hand, maybe being a friend to all, but not a true friend to any. Maybe making alliances where they need to make, but not satisfied with what they're getting, but headed toward having something that they can sell to the world that causes them to gain some fortune. But what do they really need? They are fast becoming one of the largest, well, they are the largest population in the world, according to the population by country in the world population worldometer map. India now has a population of 1,476,625,576 people as we speak, with a density of 497 people per kilometer and a land area of only 2.9 million square kilometers. So they're pretty packed. In fact, they're one of the most packed nations besides Bangladesh that we have. They're probably one of the, and Haiti. Haiti is packed as well as Israel, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Palestine even doesn't have, but they're losing land, which is why they're packed. And Bahrain, these are some areas that do not, they have a lot of people based on the square footage that they own. And I believe that if I continue to look, but I haven't really looked at that, Nigeria is one of those places also that is, they've got a lot of people, but they may be running out of space. So it's like they have a large country, they have land, but it's one of those places that is becoming very packed, very packed. So what will happen with India? What will happen with India? India will eventually start to do their own thing for who they need to be for themselves, building what they need to build, possibly even giving out intel, giving out people who are their technological geniuses to help make the world go round. They should hire these people out to other people in the world. I believe that if they have that type of technology and intelligence, they should sell it, much like Cuba was selling their doctors. But they do not feel, based on what I'm seeing here in the reading, they do not feel that they have been treated fairly and that people have taken them seriously. So when people feel this way, you got to make sure they get a little bit out of the deal if you're going to be dealing with them. Because we're talking about the largest population in the world at this current time. Okay, so let's look at Iran. Iran, or ancient Persia as it used to be called, this is not new to them. Iran has been tackled by some of the biggest bullies in the history of mankind, and they have absorbed these bullies and survived these bullies through their very, very intense, strong culture. And that culture is not going anywhere. They are willing to fight. They are survivors, and they have survived for thousands of years. And when I think about the USA and Israel and Iran, I think of the song by Escape, Understanding. What I need from you is understanding. We really just want to get along with everyone, is what Iran is saying. We want sovereignty. We don't want to not get along with people, but people just don't want to get along with us. And it's if I look at that song, it says something to the effect that you don't even know me, but you want to do what you want to do. And I just want understanding. Why can't we communicate? We can't communicate because you don't hear what I'm saying. But all I need from you in the world is understanding. That is what India or Iran is saying. However, what we have learned is that what the psychiatrists have told us so many years ago about communication is not true. They told us that, oh, you just have to have open communication and you can have a wonderful relationship. Well, that's not necessarily true because you can communicate all you want to a narcissist, to an abused narcissist who has suffered major abuse, and they're not going to process what you're saying. So you've got to find someone to communicate with that is able to understand and to respond appropriately to what you're saying. And in this world stage, we're not talking about many heavy hitters. You're basically talking about the European nations, USA. Of course, we have South America, we have Africa, we have Russia, and we have China, and then we have the people who are doing business with China and Russia. But these are, maybe you're talking about possibly 10, 15 major players. So we're looking at a playground with not a lot of kids because everybody is going to be going with those main players. So we got to really keep that in mind. So, what should the world do? Well, let's ask that main question. Will there be World War III within the next 2 years? Will we have World War III within the next 2 years, to the point where it can become devastating for basically all countries? A lot of talk about it, a lot of reporting about it, a lot of fear about it. In fact, have you ever had a situation where so many people have been talking about a fight for so long, you just like ready for it? Can you just go ahead and fight already? Can we just go ahead and get this done? So tired of fighting about it. Come on, let's just do it. And I don't know if that is the right way to be, but in the meantime, all these pot shots are setting us up for something major because it's causing a lot of people to feel like they've been untreated fairly, but it doesn't seem like the actual catastrophe or Armageddon or whatever as they call it is going to happen within even the next 2 years. I mean, I've been reporting on these, reporting from a spiritual standpoint on these wars for the last 4 years, and my cards are not showing me any kind of major world war. I think at the end I'm gonna look and see, when does this happen, or does it ever happen? Okay, or will it happen while I'm still alive? Um, Hoping that I live to my full days that I expect to live. We shall see. So If we want a fair world, we have to stop believing the lies. Will money be paid back in reparations to the colonies that the West has taken over when they split it up during that great United Nations meeting? The UK and Europe owe the world quadrillions of dollars for what they stole. They should pay that back by canceling all the debts they say Africa and South America owe them. And just maybe you don't give them reparations, but at least cancel the debt. Stop the digging. Africa and South America should decide right now to stop letting people dig up the earth for nothing. If we keep treating the earth like a trash can, there won't be a world left to fight over. So this authority that the West has had over the colonies for so long that are no longer colonies, but some of them are still paying these Western powers back. This has become an obstacle and a challenge. People want autonomy. The so-called children have grown up. But the real intelligence says that countries should stop buying um, unfortunately, the false religion, or some people will call it false religion, of the Western movies and news. These other countries have been indoctrinated with this 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 um, spiritual mindset, and that holds a lot of power for them. They don't have their own data. They have rejected their own stories, and even though there are people within each of these countries who are trying to recapture tradition, they are in the minority. And as long as you have people believing that you are the Messiah, or believing that God is white, not saying that this is not a slight against Caucasians, but when black people believe that God is a white person, well, I don't need to go any further than that. Okay? So the bottom line is that the so called, and I'm going to do the quote unquote thing again, the grown ups in charge of the world have been cheating it for a long time. And they use fancy words to make the theft look legal, like the spread of certain minds, political doctrines that they feel are the best ones to have. But the kids, up and coming countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, the new Africa, they are realizing that these bullies don't actually have any power if everyone stops giving them their lunch money. And everybody's kind of wanting to be left alone. Leave us alone to do our own thing. We want to have our weapons, and we want to trade our stuff, and we want to build our people and make our kids safe, and let our families grow. We want to be left alone to grow. And we do want to be able to defend ourselves, okay? So, and we need to look at China also. China is becoming a grandfather and a grandmother. China is not growing in, they're not the largest population anymore, and their population is getting older. So they need to start looking at the world in a certain way too, understanding that people change, the world is changing. So let's talk about what needs to happen. In order for us to continue to evolve on this planet, what should we do? Allow these so-called younger nations, younger from a standpoint of having their own sovereignty, allow them to have their solitude and give them time to grow. There have been some news reports, especially from Al Jazeera, where they have gone into countries like Yemen and countries like Iraq, and these people don't want to fight. They've already been there. They've been there, they've done that. They just want to be left alone to buy, to sell, to love, to grow, to heal. They People do not want war. And when you're looking at it from a standpoint of the world news stage, it's easy to watch a building be broken down and torn up. But you don't know what it's like to live in a tent during a sandstorm. Most of us have no knowledge of what that's like, so we don't care. We're just watching it on TV while we're eating our warm meals and our warm beds and enjoying our predictable lifestyles. But is that the right thing to do? Is that the right way to look at it? I was watching a young lady with 5 children trying to walk from where she lived or where she had to evacuate to back to Iran. And some of these people in all these places that are being attacked in the Middle East are trying to go to Syria. Syria? Can Syria stand to have refugees right now when they just came out of their own crisis and all their people flooded to different countries and to Europe, and now they're taking refugees? Oh, come on, people. So the first thing we need to do is allow these nations to be left alone so that they can recover. The second thing we need to do is we got to figure out what we're going to do with the United Nations. Let me ask the oracle cards. What should come of the United Nations? The United Nations should stay together, but they should have a more fair and righteous partnership. Now, they should have a new name, probably something like Telluria, which is a name that stands for earth and soil, which is about more than just European countries or countries that have veto power. No country should have veto power. No country should have veto power because any country that has veto power is going to have too much power. But what they need to do is they need to change their name. They need to leave their headquarters in the West and go to where the raw stuff is happening. They really need to be set up in Israel. Okay? They need a new location in Israel because that's the seat of where everything seems to be happening. And they need to develop a Tellurian assembly because we're going to call it Telluria. And they need to make sure that they deal with, not dismantle, but deal with all these other autonomous national groups or international groups that are developing and organizing. They all need to be a part of this Tellurian assembly. Okay, so how the new UN works, it's a union of unions. No longer do we have the old system of this one group of countries trying to be a mother to the rest of the world. No longer do we have that, or 5 countries could stop anything that they want by just saying no with this veto, and everybody else is just subject to it. No longer should we have that. No more veto power in the UN. So the first thing that happens with this Tellurian assembly is that the P5, US, UK, France, Russia, and China are stripped of their special action key, which is they could do whatever they want with that veto power. Strip them of that. And in Telluria, decisions are made by a super majority, two-third vote, detaching from that old situation, coming up with a new way. And if the world were to say that the UK must either pay back the 45 trillion they stole or drop all of the bills that they say other countries owe them, if that's what the Telluria votes for, then that's what should happen. Okay? And the UK would not be able to veto their that bill. Okay? So let's talk about the power of regional unions. So instead of having about 193 separate countries fighting for scraps, the world should be organized into blocks. Each block has a massive vote in Telluria. So perhaps the African Union has a block. Everything is shifting. Everything is changing. In order to have long term triumph, each of these regional unions needs to have a vote. The African Union or the AU has a vote. They vote as a giant block to protect their minerals. The Indian Union, representing about 1.4 billion, their vote carries the weight of their own history. They get a vote. The Caribbean and South American bloc, they vote together on issues of climate and reparations or um, debt erasure. The Europe, or even getting some of their stuff back. I didn't know until recently that many of the trees were taken from Haiti, and the infrastructure of the land and the flooding and the earthquakes might have something to do with that. All that those trees were taken to France to build their buildings. I mean, like, how do you? Maybe France should give them money to plant more trees, or they need to do something with the money that was refinanced with the World Bank. Why would any country still be paying for slavery? I mean, like, why would they be paying for slavery? How do you how do you rationalize a whole country being slaves, being taken into slavery, fighting a revolution to be free, and being told that they stole goods and ownership, things that were owned by France, so they had to pay France back for what France lost in this war, and this this debt is refinanced, so now you owe this other bank. When really, at the end of the day, you're paying them for your freedom still in 2026. Come on, guys. Okay, so the Caribbean and South American bloc, they need their own vote. They need their own vote. We got a gossip card. Let's talk about this with regard to the Caribbean and South American bloc, because if we're really honest, all peoples of the world sometimes have problems getting along, and there are a lot of falsehoods and things that we don't know about that are part of the issue. What are you telling me about this gossip when it comes to the Caribbean and South American bloc? Choose wisely. That would be the leadership. The leadership, how it's run, has to be chosen very wisely. All excuses has to be eliminated. It's time that you just pull yourself up about by your britches, and they need to be heard so that they too have passions, so that some of their natives can go back and feel safe. They These puppet governments, we've got to do something about that. These puppet governments do not serve the people. They serve the Western nations. The European Union, they keep their vote, but it's now equal to the other votes. No more special status. No more special status. No more mama, papa. What are they going to do? They're so used to the conquest. They're so used to taking over everything from their big castles. What do they do now if they are stripped of that kind of power and these countries are empowered by themselves? They can assist with spreading good doctrine, spreading good education, becoming a center of the arts and things of that nature. Let's just spread love, please. Let's do that. So the Southeast Asia, ASEAN, Vietnam, Indonesia, and others vote as the new manufacturing powerhouse. The new manufacturing powerhouse. As China ages and has less of a population than they used to, it looks like things are switching over to Southeast Asia, and they are doing the work, but they're not playing with anybody either for fear of what they've gone through. You know, they've had to defend their lands, they've had to defend their honor. They've gone through times when they were taken captive too. So they're not in the best of moods. And they are very serious, and they're not going to be playing with the rest of the world. These nations in Southeast Asia, they will cut you down. So everybody who understands that are watching this reading, you need to know that these nations will not play with you. So the world's to-do list. Let's go back over it. If Telluride was set up today, here's how they would fix the world. The debt audit. The UK, Europe, and US are handed a bill for stolen resources and labor from the last 400 years, and you got to look at which debt is going to be forgiven. There maybe won't be any kind of there. Yeah, we need an exorcist. It won't be any kind of reparations, possibly, but there needs to be reparation credits instead of aid, which is just a give the bullies give to feel good. The wealthy countries must provide reparation credits. This money goes directly into schools and factories in what we call the global south. But no loans, no payback, debt release. There needs to be a year of jubilee for all these countries that have been paying the West for so many hundreds of years, okay? Intel for everyone. Satellites, internet codes shared. No one country gets to spy on the world's trade secrets for free. Every country gets intel. Instead of having an FBI, CIA, they need an international intel that everybody gets the report. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody gets the information. We need one intel. Of course, everybody can have their own intel, but there should be an international intelligence agency. Is there an international intelligence agency? I don't know. If somebody knows that, let me know. No exploitation. Let's get rid of exploitation. If you take raw materials out of Africa without building a factory there first, the Tellurian Assembly votes to cut you off from global trade. No exploitation. No rebels. Nobody doing their own thing and rejecting the authority. Everybody has to play along. Okay? So the old UN was a club for thieves. Telluria is a court for owners. So there are stolen quadrillions of dollars. Okay, there's been a liar's loop. Depending on where you go, the news changes, so nobody knows what's going on. We kind of need international news, as well as we need international intel. I'm not saying that they need to be over everybody. I don't know. They don't. Everybody needs to maintain their own individual, but they need to receive reports from this international association, and they should have representatives from all countries to make sure nobody's cheating. You have to do that. Okay. Um, so I think that the biggest bill goes to Africa. Africa was robbed even more than the 45 trillion that was taken from India, and the people took the thieves took the people, they took the earth, they took everything. Well, what about all the aid we gave? Okay, well, what have you? It's not enough. Over 12 million people were stolen for the slave trade. And if those 12 million people had stayed and worked in Africa, the country would be about $100 trillion richer today, according to research. Stolen resources that drained 152 trillion from the global south, mostly Africa, taking oil, gold, diamonds for almost nothing. And don't just leave the factories there. Train the people of that land so that they can run it themselves. Okay? And when you add up the slaves, the stolen gold, the rubber, the land, the minerals, the world owes Africa quadrillions of dollars. So Africa's role is now to continue on the vein of where they are, to develop their tech and protect themselves. They should shut down those mines and tell the bullies no more digging until you pay the tab. No more digging. You can't come over here anymore. No more digging till you pay the tab. And everything you do, we have to have a group of our youth that's being trained and interned by you when you come over here so that they are learning as well. Okay, so this union of unions, the new Tellurian Assembly, where there's no veto power, decisions are made by a vote of regional unions. We don't get rid of the AU. We don't get rid of the Indian Union, who is the pharmacy of the world. We don't get rid of the South American Caribbean bloc, who is the water and food bloc. We don't get rid of the Korean, Vietnam, Indonesia, or Caribbean bloc. These are the action keys that they make the tech, they make the hardware. Vietnam is now the new factory for the world. The Caribbean is the moral court that keeps track of the reparations. America and Canada, stay in your own yard. Be your own angel. Don't try to be the angels of the world. They used to be the security guard for the thieves, and now they are a fortress. They need to fix their own broken cities and leave the world alone. Fix Chicago, fix Detroit, fix Cleveland, fix Memphis, fix your own area, fix Hollywood and all the people that live in the tents in Hollywood. Fix your own land, okay? And Canada, um, don't become like the people of the West. Don't let your mining companies become some of the biggest thieves in Africa. Don't become a bully. I know you've been trained by the best, but don't become a bully. Telluria would make you pay for every ounce of dirt that was taken. All right? So we need these reparation credits. No more raw exports. If a country wants a phone battery, they have to build a battery factory in the country where the lithium is, and they have to train those people on how to run it. In the fake religions, and don't use these ethics and fake morals and false religions to try to control people's minds. No more following these old rules. Every union should have their own currency, their own code secrets, their own intelligence, so that they cannot be spied on. Because there's some things going on. We got some new ideas that there's new ideas that need to be made in this world. But before I go, oh, wow, it's 47 minutes now. Before I go, I want to look at, will there be an Armageddon? Will Earth, who's supposedly been here for millions of years, destroy all of its people or blow itself up? Let's talk about the people. Will all the people destroy themselves on the earth within the next, let's say, 1,000 years? Within the next 1,000 years, at any time, will Earth destroy itself with nuclear war or be destroyed by an outside power like aliens? We get the judgment card, y'all. Something could happen. So let's talk about that. Will this happen within the next 100 years? Let's break it down. We gotta get this bad news. Will it happen within the next 100 years? I'm getting the 8 of cups. Let's break it down. Will it happen within the next 50 years? Okay. It I feel like it could happen within the next 50 years if we don't do what we know we need to do. If we So I'm going to look at it in decades. Well, actually I'm going to look at it in half decades. When do we get to this reset point of destruction? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. It could happen at that 45. Hold on. 50, 55. About 55 years, something is going to occur. So let's take this and do something with it. I also want to ask, will this have to do with aliens? They said that they just released some reports that there were alien bases under the water, like in the ocean. Will this be Earthlings? or aliens? First card for Earthlings, second card for aliens, extraterrestrials. Who will cause this issue? It's like the aliens don't come to us. They are surrounding us, but they don't come to us to destroy us. We destroy ourselves. Okay? So, I don't see where we have to worry about them. I think that with all the technology they probably have, if they wanted to destroy us, we would have been destroyed a long time ago. What do you think? Okay, let's look at this judgment card in 55 years. And you can't say you won't be here because you never know. You might come back as a kid. Who knows? You might come back again. Your spirit might go into the body of a 10-year-old, and you may never leave. Who knows? Tell me more about the judgment. Ooh, you know what? Okay, we got the sun. Okay, and don't just think about Christianity. Don't just think about Jesus. Think about Zoroastrianism and Azura Mazda and all of them. Okay, we also have this. I would call him the preacher. This person who is trying to heal the world at this time to bring everyone together for this celebration or marriage ceremony. And then we have the moon card. Let's look at that. The new moon, the new moon, the new earth, the new heavens on it seems like all this stuff we've been listening to and all this that we've been talking about in some way there is going to be a renewal. In some way there will be some form of a renewal. So, okay, so since there's going to be a renewal, what do people have to do to be best prepared for it? Is it going to come in a specific way, or what do we need to know about this renewal season that the earth is going to go through? What do we need to know about it? You're going to hear a lot of things about what's happening, but you need to in some way detach from the noise. Detach from that noise because in the end there is going to be we're going to be all right no matter what we go through. It's going to be a renewal. Not it's not a destruction to get rid of everything and make this a desert wasteland. Is destruction to renew, to make it better. It's almost like getting rid of all the old, like you know that show about renovating a house called Bones, where you're getting rid of all the old stuff and the mold and the mildew, but you're going to be rebuild on those bones so you can have new commitments, and there's going to be a new dynasty, a new a new kingdom, and it's a part of our destiny. It's a part of our cycle of renewal. Okay, it's not for destruction, it's for renewal. Okay, anything else you need to tell us about what we need to do to prepare for all of this? What do we need to do to prepare? Have harmony, guys. Get along with each other. Clear your hearts and your minds. Have peace. Build the earth. Six, the number of beauty, the number of creativity. Revisit the arts. Put money back into the arts. Put money back into the joy of life. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. All right. I hope you enjoyed this reading. Take care. Bye bye.